Hello, folks. It's Wednesday, 8 o'clock again, and I'm lost track. I just don't know how many of these I've done now. It's either number 14 or 15, but who's counting, eh? Tonight is going to be very interesting, especially to those of us who are fogies, and I count myself in that group, because we have an expert on aging and longevity, and that's a soft G. I must make care to say that. His name is Dr. Mark Darcy. Hello, Mark.
Hello. Hello.
How the devil are you?
I'm good. I'm coping with the lockdown. Being a university lecturer, all of my courses have had to go online. Yes. So the last couple of months, I've basically been turning every single one of my face-to-face lectures into a Zoom lecture. Which has been a big learning curve, but quite interesting. It's going well. It's going well.
Yeah, pretty much every guest I have on here has to say the same thing. We're all going digital and remote, aren't we?
We are. To be honest, I think that it should have happened 20 years ago. The technology was ready, but I think there was no will to do it. So everyone put it off a little bit, and now we're being forced to adopt the new technology.
Yeah. Good thing. Because otherwise we're just stuck in the mud, carrying on the way we were.
Exactly.
So you have very kindly produced a video for us.
I have indeed. A rather long one, I will admit. I got carried away when I was recording it. I do like to talk, unfortunately.
It's easily done. Yes, when I prepare a presentation, I've usually got to chop it afterwards down to a reasonable size because it keeps developing. I go down little rabbit holes and then another new little rabbit hole.
There's always something else to say about any topic.
Yes, that's right.
Knowing when to stop, it's a skill I never quite learned.
Yeah. So which universities are you lecturing at currently?
I'm at Hertfordshire. Sorry, I'm over in the University of Hertfordshire in Hatfield, and I'm also at Anglia Ruskin University in Cambridge.
Yeah. I had a little flirtation with Hertfordshire University because at the time I had a little company that was making some interesting educational products, and their business school got in touch with me because they wanted to put their students through a sort of Dragon's Den experience.
Oh dear.
So they got me along as a dragon to ask the difficult questions of these students with their little business ideas. It was quite fun.
You seem too nice for that. I can't imagine you in the kind of I'm out position.
Well, thank you for saying that. What more can I say, really? So I'm going to click on the buttons that make your video show.
Okay.
And I will full screen it so you and I will disappear from view. Let me see if I can do this.
So let's talk a little bit now about the process of aging and whether there's anything we can do to slow it down or even stop it. And not just for the ending, but we can't stop aging just yet. You probably would have heard about that in the news if we could. But we can do quite a bit to slow the process down and increase health span as well as lifespan. And health span, to be honest, is more important than lifespan. It's great to live a long time, but you don't want to be sick and weak and tired and not have your molecules are known as reactive oxygen species, commonly known as free radicals. Now, free radicals, basically, if we look here, you can see that we've got a free radical. The cross that you can see in the outer shell of that free radical atom element is lacking an electron. That cross is where an electron should be. Now, elements, atoms, want a full shell of electrons, a full valence shell, they call it. And to get that full shell, they will react. And they will react with pretty much anything they can react with. And that includes DNA. And DNA, if it gets damaged, damages you. So we generate these free radicals as a byproduct of metabolism. And these free radicals will then bind to normal, healthy, stable molecules within your cells and damage them as a result. So they can break your DNA, they can break genes, and if your genes are faulty, then the genes you see express proteins and various other molecules within your cells. And if a gene is damaged, it cannot express the protein. So genes are made of DNA. When a gene is switched on, it produces RNA, and the RNA goes to a little protein factory in your cells called a ribosome, where a protein is made. Faulty gene means faulty RNA, means faulty protein, means faulty body in many cases. So we don't want free radicals. That is the key. But we generate them all the time, from the moment we're born to the moment we die.
We're having a problem.
Which is where antioxidants come in.
Oh, we're having a problem. What's up? What's up?
Vitamin C, vitamin E, and
at the moment.
You probably don't know what they are, though. Antioxidants
at the moment,
are the nemesis of free radicals.
I can't.
They mop them up. They mop them up. So here, for example, we have an antioxidant binding with a free radical and therefore neutralizing.
I might have to start your video again.
So the idea quite a while ago, actually.
I suppose this will all come out in the edit.
Will, yes.
Antioxidants.
Definitely.
We would be able to eliminate free radicals from our cells,
so what I'm going
the
to
amount of damage to our DNA, and maybe age slower. That was the theory. The theory sounds good, but there are flaws.
Yeah, sorry about this. I didn't realize that there's no rear connection for the audio. It has to come out of the speaker and go down my microphone. So if I take myself off the screen, the viewers lose the audio. But I'll see if I can do better. Give me a minute. It might have been, but if I'd realized this, I would have asked you to send me the video rather than upload it.
Probably a bit too late now because it's a bit of a big file.
Yeah.
I mean, I could probably show it out to you if you like.
Yes, you show it on your screen and share your screen with us.
Okay, yes, I can do that. Oh, but won't we have the same problem? Won't my audio be an issue at that point?
Yes, it might be.
I think we will just reverse the problem from your end to my end.
You could be right.
Okay. So, I mean, I could hear you from my end. I'm sorry. I could. When you showed it out last time, I could actually hear you from my end, and I could hear me from my end.
Yes. Okay, but we want it bigger on the screen, don't we? So that's. Let me see what I can do to make it bigger.
I would share it with you. I would send you an email with the link. My only issue is that because it's so big, it will take a while to upload.
Yeah, yeah.
And for you to get hold of.
Yeah, yeah. So, what I'm trying to do, let me have a look on my laptop. What fun.
The joys of modern technology.
Absolutely.
At least we don't still have dial-up networking and modems.
We've moved on a bit since, what are those things that the Victorians had? Magic lanterns.
Magic lanterns.
Yeah. So I'm going to start it again. Apologies to everyone, but here we go.
So let's talk a little bit now about the process of aging and whether there's anything we can do to slow it down or even stop it. Not just for the ending, but we can't stop aging just yet. You probably would have heard about that in the news if we could. But we can do quite a bit to slow the process down and increase health span as well as lifespan. And health span, to be honest, is more important than lifespan. It's great to live a long time, but you don't want to be sick and weak and tired and not have your mental faculties for a sizable chunk towards the end of your life. You want to be healthier for longer, as well as to live more years. Well, maybe you do, maybe you don't, but I certainly do. So, why do we age? Why do we age? Here's a good quote. I like this quote. This is from Spike Milligan. Spike Milligan. I'm not afraid of dying. I just don't want to be there when it happens. I couldn't agree with that more. It's not being dead that is scary. After all, you were all dead for about 13.9 billion years before you were born. And you'll be dead for a heck of a lot longer once you finally do shuttle off this mortal coil. So it's not really being dead that is something that people are afraid of generally. It's more of a process. It's more dying. It's more being in pain, losing your faculties, suffering, all of those sorts of things. And that's what medicine is for. It's to try and extend the health span. And if we get some extra lifespan out of that as well, then brilliant. That would be great. So let's go through some of the theories as to why we age. One of the first theories to come along was known as the free radical theory. So reactive oxygen species, what are they? Well, this isn't going to be a biochemistry talk, so I don't want to spend too much time going into the nitty-gritty. I want to give you an overview. But everything that happens in your cells, all of the metabolic processes, as we use oxygen and glucose to generate energy, as we build up proteins and cellular structures, as we break things down, when we do all of that, there are byproducts. There are many molecules that are produced as byproducts. And some of these molecules are known as reactive oxygen species, commonly known as free radicals. Now, free radicals, basically, if we look here, you can see that we've got a free radical. It's the cross that you can see in the outer shell of that free radical atom element is lacking an electron. That cross is where an electron should be. Now, elements, atoms, want a full shell of electrons, a full valence shell, they call it. And to get that full shell, they will react. And they will react with pretty much anything they can react with. And that includes DNA. And DNA, if it gets damaged, damages you. So we generate these free radicals as byproducts of metabolism. And these free radicals will then bind to normal, healthy, stable molecules within your cells and damage them as a result. So they can break your DNA, they can break genes, and if your genes are faulty, then the the genes you see express proteins and various other molecules within your cells, and if the gene is damaged, it cannot express the protein. So genes are made of DNA. When the gene is switched on, it produces RNA, and the RNA goes to a little protein factory in your cells called a ribosome, where a protein is made. Faulty gene means faulty RNA, means faulty protein, means faulty body in many cases. So we don't want free radicals. That is the key. But we generate them all the time, from the moment we're born to the moment we die, which is where antioxidants come in. Now, we've all heard of antioxidants, vitamin C, vitamin E, and a few others. You probably don't know what they are, though. Antioxidants are the nemesis of free radicals. They mop them up. They mop them up. So here, for example, we have a antioxidant binding with a free radical and therefore neutralizing it. So the idea materialized quite a while ago, actually, back in the 60s and 70s, that if we took huge amounts of these antioxidants, we would be able to eliminate free radicals from our cells, slow down the amount of damage to our DNA, and maybe age slower. That was the theory. The theory sounds good, but there are flaws. A couple of flaws. First of all, I'll tell you where the theory originated. It originated in a lab. Cells normally can only divide about 30 or 40 times in the lab when you grow them in culture. By the end of 30 or 40 times, they are worn out. I'll explain a little bit more about why they wear out shortly. And when they're worn out, they stop dividing. And if a cell stops dividing, it cannot replace itself, can't make new copies. And in an organ, that would mean as tissues become damaged, new cells would not be generated to replace them. So in the lab, they noticed that a normal cell, say a skin cell, when cultured in the lab, will grow about 30 or 40 times. However, if you treated the cell culture with a strong antioxidant, such as vitamin C or vitamin E, then the cells could divide many more times before they stop dividing. By the way, when a cell stops dividing, it is known as senescence. We'll talk about senescent cells a little later. So in theory, it all sounds brilliant. You take lots of vitamin C, you take lots of vitamin E, you live forever. But unfortunately, it's never that simple in science. Although you wouldn't think so from the supplements industry. You've probably all seen the adverts. They're always on the TV for vitamin C, vitamin E supplements. But they're not a fountain of youth for a couple of reasons. First of all, something like vitamin C is water soluble. So if I was to take a huge amount of vitamin C right now, if I took one of those 1,000 milligram pills of vitamin C that you solubilized in a pint of water and drink, then all that would happen is an hour or so later, I would pee most of it down the toilet. It's water soluble, so it goes in, it goes down, goes into my blood, goes into my kidney, goes into my bladder, goes out into the toilet. This is the case with many vitamin supplements, actually. You end up spending a lot of money just to make expensive urine. Not ideal. But there's another reason why these antioxidants are not the fountain of youth, and that is because we actually need free radicals. We need free radicals. They are not just a byproduct of our metabolism. To fight infections, we produce free radicals, and those free radicals damage the infectious agents. They're used by our immune system to help destroy infections. So we do need them. We do need them. So that theory, we have to kind of, not completely, but partially put on the back burner. Telomeres, what's a telomere? So I told you that cells can divide about 30 or 40 times before they stop. This is known as the AFLIC limit, after the person that discovered this number. Scientists called AFLIC. So on further investigation, it turns out that the reason that cells can only divide so many times is because they wear out. Makes sense. But it's not the chromosome itself generally that's wearing out. We have many DNA repair enzymes that fix genes as they break. They become less efficient as we get older, but we have them. The problem is these structures, which are highlighted in red here, known as the telomeres. So these are our chromosomes, and at the end of our chromosomes, we have a telomere. The way to think about a telomere is it's sort of like the bit of plastic at the end of a shoelace. Now, it protects the shoelace from fraying. If the plastic breaks, the shoelace frays. It's the same with our DNA. It's the same with our chromosomes. We have a pad at the end of our chromosomes called the telomere. And whenever a cell divides, the telomere gets a little bit shorter. Or telomeres, to be more specific and being quite general, the telomeres themselves wear out over time. So they wear out. And eventually that stops the cell from being able to divide any further. So our telomeres wear out and a cell stops dividing. And this is good. This is a good evolutionary development, because if the cells continued dividing, even though the telomeres were now worn out, then you'd produce cells with damaged DNA, because if the telomere is gone, then the DNA of the actual chromosome starts to be lost. So we don't want cells dividing with short or no telomeres. We just do not want that. So cells stop dividing when they reach their limits, and they then either die through a process called apoptosis, or they sort of just sit there in your body and they become what we call senescent. They sit in your body, they don't do a whole lot. They do a little bit, which I'll talk about later, but they don't really behave like the cell they are anymore. So a senescent cell in your liver will not be behaving like a liver cell anymore. It won't be doing all the tasks a liver cell would normally do. Same for a senescent cell in your brain or your heart or your kidney. The older you get, the more these senescent cells accumulate. So this sort of illustrates that process. So you can see as the cell divides and divides and divides, the pad at the end, the telomere, gets shorter and shorter and shorter until it's gone. Now, if the cell just remained and just carried on dividing, even though its telomere is gone, the DNA would be damaged and you would probably produce a bunch of cancer cells, which you don't want. So this process is useful. It's useful. But the thing is with telomeres, they have been discussed for many years as a possible way to cheat death, to extend longevity. This is because right back in the 90s, it was discovered that if you artificially lengthen telomeres using an enzyme called telomerase, you can extend longevity in mice. You can make them live longer. So longer telomeres, on average, is associated with a longer life, although it's relative length, not absolute length, because a mouse telomere is actually very long. But it's more about the change in length of the telomere that affects longevity. We're all born with telomeres of a certain length, and as we get older, they get shorter. You don't notice that much when you're young, but by the time you become middle-aged and older, you start to notice that some people seem to age quicker than others. Some people seem to age slower than others, despite lifestyle and other factors. Telomeres is part of that story. It's not the whole story, it is part of the story. And perhaps therapies, which are being developed, by the way, to increase the length of telomeres will increase longevity. Okay, so cellular senescence, I've sort of hinted at this already. Cells grow, they divide, eventually the telomeres wear out, the cell becomes senescent and it stops dividing. And then it can either die by a process of apoptosis, or it can become senescent and just sit there in the tissue, misbehaving, let's just say. Senescent cells, they release all sorts of chemicals. And what do those chemicals do? They do this, more or less. So this is an inflamed human. Senescent cells cause inflammation. The cells, and once a cell becomes senescent, it releases compounds called cytokines, inflammatory cytokines. And these inflammatory cytokines attract the cells of the immune system, and that causes inflammation. The older you get, the more senescent cells accumulate in your tissues, and the more inflammation occurs in your tissues as a result. Now, you might say, well, why don't we get rid of the senescent cells? Once again, though, like with the telomeres, it's a sort of double-edged sword. When you are young, these senescent cells are useful. So if you get a wound, if you get a cut, then what happens is senescent cells accumulate around the wound. Same if the damage is internal in one of your organs. And these senescent cells seem to speed up the healing process. They speed up the healing process. So the senescent cells are essential for healing. And when you're young, that's fine. There's not many of them, and they get cleared away nice and easily by your immune system. But the older you get, the more of these senescent cells accumulate, and the more damage they cause, the greater the inflammation. We seem to lose our ability to clear away senescent cells easily as we get older. But we'll get to that shortly. There are ways to get rid of senescent cells. Okay, so I mentioned these free radicals, these telomeres, these senescent cells, but why do we really age? Why does a mouse not live very long? Why does a human relatively live much longer? What causes these differences? It's evolution. It's evolution. Evolution doesn't care how long you live, as long as your genes are passed to the next generation. Evolution isn't about the organism. Richard Dawkins said that back in the 70s when he wrote his book, The Selfish Gene. We are just vessels. We are ships to pass on our genes to the next generation. Our purpose is served once we have reproduced and passed our genes to the next generation. So we need to live long enough, and we need to be able to repair our bodies efficiently for enough years to reproduce and pass our genes to the next generation. So a balance needs to be made between longevity, the ability to repair our bodies, and the ability to reproduce. And there's a balance between that. Now, if you go back a couple of 100,000 years to when humans were just, when we just evolved, when we were hunter-gatherers, we didn't live very long. We didn't live very long at all. We didn't have cities, we didn't have agriculture, we had no protection. Disease was around, starvation was ever present, and drought. The human would be lucky to make a few decades, to make 30 or 40 years before they died. So evolution seemed to produce a body that could repair itself efficiently and reproduce efficiently for about 30 or 40 years, because why bother making a body that can repair itself efficiently at 90 when there are no 90-year-olds and everyone would be dead by 30 or 40? So this is the real reason we age, and the real reason that different animals age at different rates. Animals that will be predated upon or die of disease relatively young will evolve to survive and repair their body just for that small number of years. So with a mouse, that's about 3 years. With a chimpanzee, about 59. With a human, up to, say, 100, 110 or above. The record, I believe, is 126. Although there's been some debate recently as to whether that's true. It's a French woman, this is. Apparently she knew Van Gogh. Okay, so, and you can see this even with animals that are the same size. So if you look at something like a rat, which lives about 4 years, it's a rodent, and it's about the same size as a squirrel. And a squirrel can live 9 years. A squirrel can live much, much longer, despite being from the same sort of family of animals and being about the same size. The reason for that is that the rat is more easily predated upon, it suffers more disease in the environment that it lives in. So it's geared to produce a body that efficiently repairs itself for just a few years, long enough to reproduce, whereas squirrel much longer. So evolution, we're a victim of evolution. So, what lifestyle factors affect aging? Well, some of it you obviously know about. I mean, stress, causes aging. The more stressed we are, the more cortisol we produce, the more adrenaline we produce, and they help us short term because they give us more energy. They allow our body to release more sugar, our blood flow increases, we're able to fight or run away from a predator. So stress is helpful, evolutionarily speaking, in the short term, but it's bad in the long term. Decades of stress wears your body out, speeds up the aging process. Stress has been associated with shortening your telomeres. Being relaxed, being happy, tends to mean your telomeres shorten at a slower rate. So stress is bad. Again, nature doesn't care, because if the stress causes you to develop cancer when you're 60, why would nature care? We evolved in an environment where no one made it to 60. The reproducing was over. Sort of genes that would make you healthy in old age, well, they never got selected for because people didn't make it to old age. Smoking, drinking, and other fun pastimes. I don't smoke, but I'm a fan of drinking, and back in my student days, maybe a fan of one or two other things as well. Many of these chemicals and compounds are very bad for you, and they can speed up the process of aging. Exercise, it's there in the bad section, but it can be in both bad and good. We seem to think that exercise is always good for you, and it generally is good for you, but I put it in the bad section just because too many people overdo it. Short bursts of exercise are very good for you. It shocks your body, and that shock temporarily increases inflammation, but then brings down the inflammation and helps you mop up free radicals and switch on genes which are anti-inflammatory. And these anti-inflammatory genes, their products hang around for a little while. So exercise is very good for you short term, but if you overdo it, you wear out your body, you wear out your joints, you wear your muscles out, you cause damage. So exercise is very good for you. It must be done correctly. It shouldn't be overdone. Infections. There are many viruses which damage your DNA and bacteria that damage your organs, and they increase the speed of aging. In terms of good lifestyle choices, calorie restriction is one of them. It was noted, I think, back in the 1930s, that if you fed a mouse on a fraction of its normal calories that it would normally need to survive, but gave it all the relevant nutrients, its metabolism changed. Certain genes were switched on, known as sirtuins, and other genes were switched off. Inflammation was dampened down, the cells became more efficient, and these mice lived up to 40% longer. And more importantly, they were healthier for longer. So they were healthy, vibrant mice for much, much longer when they were on a calorie-restricted diet. So calorie restriction has been shown, proven to increase longevity now in many species. However, it's not something humans are particularly tempted by because, well, you get hungry. You get hungry. Food is something we seek. Now, we can understand why calorie restriction evolved as a way to increase longevity, because throughout history, animals would regularly be exposed to droughts and to famines. Even humans, we weren't always farmers. We didn't always have a refrigerator in the house full of food. So there would be regular periods when we would starve, when we would go several days or even several weeks without food. And the thing is, we needed to get through that. The body needed to get through that to reproduce. Remember, our bodies, their purpose is just to pass our genes to the next generation. So there was a selection pressure to evolve bodies that were able to survive those periods of famine. So we evolved genes that could be switched on in times of famine and allow our cells to become more efficient and age slower so that we could make it through the famine and reproduce when food was bountiful again. Calorie restriction links a little bit with ketosis. So we tend to survive these days on carbohydrates, most humans. We have pasta, we have rice, we have potatoes. We all have very high carb diets. But that wasn't always the case. back in Paleolithic times when we were hunter-gatherers, there was not ice cream. There was not bread. We weren't farming yet. There wasn't rice. There weren't a lot of foods that were high in carbs. Every now and then there would be. Every now and then there would be some tree that would be in fruit. This would only really happen in autumn. And our bodies are programmed to then eat as much of this sugary food as possible because it's very high in calories and very useful for our bodies. So this is why now we have such an obesity crisis, because our bodies are still programmed to seek out sugar whenever it's around, but now it's around everywhere. Back then, it really wasn't. A lot of our diet back in Paleolithic times was fat and protein and fiber, and the sorts of carbs which were very hard to digest, present in things like roots and tubers. Now, we use sugar as an energy source, glucose primarily, if it's available. If it's not available, then what happens is we switch. We go into something called ketosis. We've got about 2,500 calories of sugar stored as glycogen in our livers. So if you stop eating carbs, your body will continue to use the carbs until you run out, which takes 3 days or so, depends on the person. And then once you're out of carbs, your body will switch to primarily burning fat as an energy source, producing these byproducts called ketones, such as beta-hydroxybutyrate. Beta-hydroxybutyrate can be used as an energy source instead of sugar. And for a sizable chunk of ancient history, that would have been our primary energy source. Why am I going on about this? Well, I'm going on about this because there are benefits to ketosis. If you put your body in ketosis by removing carbs from your diet and increasing the amount of fat in your diet, you will switch after a few days to ketogenesis. You will be using ketones as an energy source. You go through a bit of a wall first where you don't feel very well, but then you start burning ketones. And these ketones have some interesting effects. One effect is they're a little bit toxic to the senescent cells. By the way, so is calorie restriction. If you restrict your calories, then you go on a very low calorie diet or a starvation diet even for a few days, then you go into ketosis and your senescent cells start to die. They will die, they will be removed. And ketosis also affects these senescent cells. It weakens them, it stops them releasing inflammatory cytokines. When you come off the calorie-restricted diet, or the ketogenic diet, maybe after a little while, what happens is something quite amazing. We have a type of cell in our body called a stem cell. Stem cells exist in all of our organs, and their purpose is to divide and produce new cells when the tissue becomes damaged. So we have stem cells, for example, in our bone marrow that produce blood cells. The stem cells all through our body. Now, these stem cells, they get primed by a calorie-restricted diet. They get activated. They don't start dividing yet, but they get ready. If you go on a calorie-restricted diet for a little while, when you come off it, first of all, your senescent cells have been destroyed. Well, many of them have. If you spend a good few days on a severely calorie-restricted diet, you kill off your senescent cells. So they're removed from the organs and tissues, therefore they're not releasing these inflammatory cytokines, which are linked with every disease imaginable, from Alzheimer's disease to Parkinson's disease to osteoporosis to irritable bowel to Crohn's disease and many, many other diseases. Many of the diseases of aging are associated with inflammation, and much inflammation is caused by senescent cells. But if you go on a calorie-restricted diet, you kill them off. And then when you come off the calorie-restricted diet and you eat again, first thing that happens is your stem cells start dividing and they replace those missing senescent cells with new, happy, shiny cells. And your organs function better. This has been tested in many scenarios, many laboratories, and it seems that calorie restriction and ketosis followed by going back onto a relatively normal diet kills off the senescent cells, brings down inflammation, and replaces damaged tissues with new healthy cells. And this would have happened regularly in our ancient past. We'd have regularly starved, which is probably why people then probably suffered much less from diseases like cancer, which are partly caused by inflammation, and Alzheimer's disease and many other diseases. And so exercise, once again, it's good for you as well as bad for you. If done right, it's very good for you. And sauna. Sauna is very good for you. By the way, before I go on to sauna, I will just briefly mention the calorie restriction. To use sugar in your body, you use insulin. You produce insulin. That gets the sugar out of your body. And that's how we use sugar. We need insulin to process sugar. Now, if you go on a calorie-restricted diet or you go into ketosis, you stop making insulin because you're using a different energy source, so you produce much less of it. And insulin isn't good. One of the bad things about insulin is it causes inflammation. And it also causes diabetes, type 2 diabetes, if your insulin levels keep spiking. So calorie restriction is good for that as well. Now, sauna. When you use a sauna, you heat up your body and you produce what we call heat shock proteins in your cells to try and protect your cells from all the damage of the heat. And then when you come out of the sauna, there is no more heat. But the heat shock proteins can hang around for up to 48 hours. And what these heat shock proteins do is they form a kind of scaffolding around the structures in your cells and protect them from damage. And this protection lasts a couple of days. There have been a number of studies performed, particularly in Finland, where everyone uses saunas. I worked in Finland for a while myself. Saunas are in every office and every home. Saunas, regular sauna use, is associated with less Alzheimer's, less cardiovascular disease, and many other diseases. The incidence are reduced from regular saunas. Saunas are very good. But the genes, regardless of what you do, what lifestyle choices you make, genes are key. We all have different versions of genes. There's about 25,000 genes in the human genome, but there are different versions of those genes. ApoE4, there is ApoE2, 3, and 4. They are different versions of the gene. If you have 2 ApoE4s, you're much more likely to develop Alzheimer's disease when you get old. Much more likely. 2 copies gives you a very high likelihood of developing Alzheimer's. If you have 1 ApoE4 that you've inherited from one parent and an ApoE3 from another parent, then your chances are lower. You're still more likely to get Alzheimer's than the average person, but they're still fairly low. And if you have the 2 ApoE3s, the chances are even lower still. And ApoE2, again, the ApoE4 is a bad one. There are things you can do if you happen to be unlucky enough to be born with such an allele, as they call it, a defective allele. Interventions such as increasing the amount of sleep you have can help mitigate the effects of ApoE4, various other processes too. But there are lots of versions of genes which can either speed up the process of aging or slow down the process of aging. We have genes that produce things called DNA repair enzymes that help keep our DNA healthy. If you have bad alleles of these genes that you inherited, your DNA doesn't repair quite so well. If you have good alleles, it repairs a little bit better. Again, lifestyle can mitigate some of this, but we all are dealt the hand we've got when it comes to genes. The sirtuins. Sirtuins are really important. I mentioned that when you go into calorie restriction, you switch on this sort of lean burn pathway in your cells that keeps you healthy for longer so that you can survive the famine. Well, a lot of the genes involved in this process are known as sirtuins, and we all carry different versions of them that are more or less active, and many others. More than I can talk about right now. There are hundreds involved in aging. So can science save us? Of course it can. Science can do anything. I mean, I'm biased. My PhD is in cellular pathology and molecular genetics. I've always been a fan of science. But I honestly think that science can do anything if it's given enough time and enough resources. And people are already working on this process now. Drugs are being developed. A lot of them are still in the early stages, but we have got some really good developments in the last few years. One class of drugs which is being worked on at the moment are known as senolytics. These are drugs which will selectively kill senescent cells in your body. The idea is you would take the drug, it would kill your senescent cells, leave the rest of your cells undisturbed, and then less inflammation, less damage to your organs and tissues, slower aging process. So these senolytics are marvelous. Unfortunately, they're not ready yet. They're still in the relatively early stages of testing. They have been shown to work effectively in mice and actually rejuvenate mice to quite a large degree, turn older mice into younger mice by killing off those senescent cells, improve their cognitive function, their cardiovascular function, lower the susceptibility to diseases. Killing senescent cells is a good thing. And these senolytics that are currently being developed are going to continue being developed. And I envision a time, hopefully, not in the too distant future, where you could go to some clinic, be given a course of senolytics that would kill off your senescent cells, and your chances of getting a number of diseases associated with aging would be reduced. You would live longer. Watch this space. Resveratrol is another. Resveratrol is a compound that was discovered quite some time ago. It's been worked on quite extensively by a Harvard scientist called David Sinclair. Resveratrol you find in grapeskin, red grapeskin, and it switches on those sirtuins. That's how it works. It switches on those sirtuins in your cells and basically fools your cells into thinking that you're in a calorie-restricted environment. You need to take quite high amounts of this resveratrol for that effect to be seen, but it's been shown in many animal models that resveratrol can slow down the damaging effects of aging by increasing the expression of these certain genes. I take resveratrol myself, and I've done for some time. Then there are the NAD boosters. Without going into too much biochemistry, our mitochondria in our cells, well, actually, I don't want to go into too much biochemistry, so I'll try and summarize it. Let's just say that there is a molecule called NAD in our cells, and it's used to power our cells in many ways. It's used to help enzymes to function. It's a coenzyme, switch genes on, other genes off. It's a very important molecule, and our cells are full of the stuff. As we get older, we produce less and less of it. And as we produce less of it, our cells do not function as effectively. We do not have as much energy in our cells. Our enzymatic processes don't perform well anymore. We slow down. NAD is very important for maintaining the energy levels and the health of the cells. In fact, the sirtuin genes, they actually need NAD to be activated. So they need it to be activated. Now, a 50-year-old will have at least a third less NAD in their cells than a 20-year-old. So this is where the NAD boosters come along. Now, NAD supplements have been around for a while, but ignore them. If you take NAD, it doesn't really get processed, doesn't really get into your cells. It kind of just ends up in your liver, and it gets turned into niacin, B vitamin, and a lot of it just isn't used. It's not actually going to get into your cells and make NAD. NAD is normally made within your cells. However, there are these NAD precursors which have been developed over the last few years. NR and NMN. NR is one I'm most familiar with. More research has been done on NR than NMN, NMN, and NM, that's it. Nicotinamide mononucleotide is the MNN, and the NR is nicotinamide riboside. Now, these two molecules are what you call NAD precursors. If you take those molecules, they make it into your cells at varying levels, and then your cells turn them into NAD internally, where they can be used as an energy source. I take nicotinamide riboside myself, NR. I do warn you, by the way, it's quite expensive. It's hard to get hold of. It's developed quite recently, and You need to keep it away from moisture and heat, otherwise the NR turns into NAD, which you don't want it to do while it's in the packet. You want it to do that while it's in your cells. So what tests have been done? Well, a number of experiments have been performed once again with mice and other animals, where they've given these animals very high amounts of NR and NMN, and these animals have exhibited much younger characteristics than the other mice and animals which were not given the boosters. So older animals appear much younger, their fur is in better condition, their skin is in better condition, they are faster, more energetic, able to solve mazes better, etc. So I've just talked about the senolytics, resveratrol, and the NAD boosters, but there's many more in the pipeline. The fountain of youth isn't here yet, by any means, but a number of developments are undergoing, and it looks like in a few years' time we're going to get a lot of drugs available that will not just extend lifespan, but will also extend health span. Final section now. Throwing a lot of information at you here, I know. A lot to talk about, I think. But stem cells, probably heard of stem cells, they are a game changer. I mentioned stem cells earlier. They're in our bodies, in all of the organs of our body, but they're not very active normally. Their purpose is to divide when we need new cells and to produce shiny new cells. But we have less and less stem cells as we get older, and they become less active. But the thing is, we have learned relatively recently that we can obtain stem cells from embryos, fertilized eggs, known as blastocysts, at a very early stage before they develop into a full embryo. We can take a sperm, take an egg, fuse them together in the lab in a petri dish, not test tube babies, petri dish babies, but they're not babies. After about 5 days, you've got a ball of cells known as a blastocyst, and there's an inner cell mass in there. You can take those cells out, you can spread them on a petri dish, and by adding lots of interesting potions and concoctions of drugs, you can get those cells to turn into all sorts of tissue. Heart cells, neurons, skin cells, liver, kidney. Someone that I know at a stem cell lab was working quite recently on causing stem cells to turn into beta cells, which are the cells that make insulin in your pancreas. The idea is you could transplant these cells into a diabetic, type 1 diabetic, and cure the disease. Here in Cambridge, there are many, many stem cell labs. Stem cells, amazing. Amazing, amazing. We're working on all sorts of uses for stem cells, and we've already come up with a number of different, again in the lab, treatments for diseases. Everything from stroke. You lose some brain cells because of the stroke, you put some stem cells in, you get new brain cells. Blindness, retinal damage, new retinal cells grown in the lab. Deafness, missing teeth, myocardial infarction, heart attack. You've lost part of your heart, it's damaged. New cells in the heart, grown from stem cells. Bone marrow transplants, diabetes, muscular dystrophy, Crohn's disease, rheumatoid arthritis, everything. The potential for stem cell therapy is, I mean, it's off the scale. It really is off the scale. Pretty much any disease you can think of, we could potentially treat with stem cell therapy. And you know what? We'd probably already do that if it wasn't for, well, let's just say if it wasn't for God. Because under the presidency of George Bush Jr., stem cell funding, so the funding, government funding of stem cell research in the US was stopped. It was stopped for his entire presidency. The research just halted in America for all those years. They continued in Europe, which is fine. So we made a lot of progress. And when Obama became president, the funding was given back. So stem cell therapies are now being developed again. But we'd probably be a few years ahead of where we are if it wasn't for one president doing what his religious advisors told him. I should say that they told him this because, according to the Bible, the moment of conception, when egg and sperm fused, so to speak, I don't know if you knew about that at the time, That is when the soul enters the body. And therefore, if you destroy this little ball of cells, you're killing one life to save another, you're destroying a life against Christian doctrine. So Christian doctrine is what prevented this from occurring. Interestingly, Islam doesn't have a problem because according to Islamic doctrine, the soul only enters the body 30 days after conception. And we harvest those cells from the blastocyst way before then, after about 5 days. So religion does have an effect on all this research. Religion does interfere with science. They're not separate magisteria, as was once said. But stem cell therapies are progressing to a huge degree. We have grown hearts in the lab using stem cells. In the future, we'll be able to grow any organ, any tissue. That is going to extend longevity massively. It will be a game changer, a huge game changer. And then there's gene therapy. CRISPR is a technique that I'm not going to go into details of. Here is a summary of it. We have these fun little enzymes known as CRISPR-Cas9 that are produced. They're originally seen in bacteria. They were used by bacteria to get rid of bacteriophages, viruses that infect bacteria. But we have modified these molecules very recently, and we can use them to basically chop out defective genes from the genome and replace them, in theory, with good genes. Genetic engineering hasn't really took off yet because the old gene therapy techniques, things such as retroviruses and liposomes and all those sorts of things, they didn't work very well. They weren't accurate. They would fling the gene randomly in your genome and maybe break some other gene. But CRISPR is accurate. It puts genes where you want them to be, removes defective genes efficiently. There's going to be a whole new set of gene therapies available in the next few years that are going to greatly extend longevity, assuming they are allowed to progress. CRISPR-Cas9, together with stem cell research, is a big, big game changer. So, in conclusion, the first 500-year-old may already have been born. Many scientists already agree that the first 200-year-old may have already been born because these techniques are advancing quickly. The senolytics, the resveratrol, the NAD boosters, the stem cells, gene therapies. Within the next couple of decades, these technologies may be everywhere, available to many, which means a 101-year-old may look no different than a 23-year-old with a bit of luck. Okay, thanks for listening to that. And by the way, just thought I'd put a little plug in here. Here is my Twitter handle if you want to follow me. It's @MarkOfTheD. I'm quite controversial on Twitter, I should warn you. And here is my website, scienceontheedge.com. It's still under development. I'm working on that site at the moment. I have a podcast series of my own called Science on the Edge. And you can subscribe to that via any podcast catcher. Just do a search for Science on the Edge. And I also have a few of my podcasts, the ones with more visuals, up on YouTube. So just do a search for me, Science on the Edge on YouTube, and you will find me.
Well, I found that brilliant.
Sorry for the gratuitous plug at the end.
Not at all. I would have deliberately.
Hello, I'm Dr. Mark Darcy, and it's
I think you started it again.
Oops. Get rid of that. Sorry. Struggling with the
That's fine.
So it's back to you and I now. Okay. So, yeah, I found that utterly fascinating.
I know there was a lot of information there. I didn't want to miss anything out. That's the thing.
Yeah. Well, I have a vested interest, so I was listening to it avidly, even though it may not have appeared so from what I was doing in my little picture-in-picture. So the thing is, when I edit this, I will make it magic. I will cut out all the unnecessary stuff. Remove your and my picture down the side of the screen. Full screen your presentation video, and generally make it look as though it's professional.
I have no doubt. I look forward to seeing it.
Yeah, give me until tomorrow to do that.
Oh wow, so quick, so quick.
Yeah, it takes a little bit of work, but I'm getting quite speedy at it now. Let's just see if we've got anybody who has come up. Oh, we got 25 comments here, but I haven't been able to see, of course, because I've been otherwise engaged. Let me see if any. Really, I should have put the banner along the bottom, which says this.
Aha.
Otherwise, people chat amongst themselves, and we don't know what they want us to address. So
I'm happy to answer any questions that your audience has.
There we go.
Okay, so our bodies produce antioxidants naturally. If there was an evolutionary advantage to producing more antioxidants, we would have evolved that ability already. Yes, I think I addressed this point. It's everything with evolution is kind of like it's a balance. If we produce lots and lots of antioxidants naturally, and we do produce antioxidants within our cell, then if we produce too many, we would probably age slower, but then we wouldn't be able to fight off infections so easily because these antioxidants are necessary. Sorry, the free radicals are necessary for us to fight infection. So if we produce too many antioxidants, we would have a weaker immune system. And now that's fine because we don't have so many viruses and bugs around compared with what we did a few thousand years ago. But back in the day, if you did not produce free radicals, you would die of a disease before you ever had to worry about aging.
Yeah, well, that's the point, really, isn't it? I mean, evolution has no interest in getting us to live to 90 because we stopped reproducing way back in our 30s, maybe.
Well, exactly. By the time a Paleolithic human was 30 or 40, a saber-toothed tiger had already eaten him. Yeah, so it was of no use having genes that could make you healthy at 90. There were no 90-year-olds.
No. So that reminds me of Glasgow. You know that there are areas of Glasgow where the life expectancy is notoriously low.
I think I know what the story you're going to tell me now, but please go ahead.
Well, you'll probably remember it better than me because of my extreme age. But it's something to do with they are stressed with so much infection because of the proximity of their housing when they're young that they wear out earlier.
Yes. Basically, if you go back to the late 19th century, this particular region of Glasgow, which now has the lowest life expectancy in Britain, by the way, average life expectancy is, I think, 54, something like that, even now. But if you go back to the 19th century, late 19th century, this was the dirtiest, most polluted, most disease-ridden part of Britain. And the people that made it to adulthood and therefore reproduced and passed their genes to the next generation were the people with the strongest immune systems who made the most free radicals. And that got them to the next generation. And that was all you needed back then. But now the descendants of those people are dying at 50 because all those free radicals are destroying their cells.
Yes.
At an early stage.
Which brings us into what is non-nuclear genetics, doesn't it? All that
epigenetics, that kind of thing.
That's the word, epigenetics, which reminds me of Lamarckism. Oh, it's such a complex area now.
He was a tiny bit right. He wasn't right about the giraffe's neck, but he was right in a way.
Yes. Anyway, before we get into that, I've got some more questions here for you. Look at this one.
which one of the lifestyle factors will contribute most to healthy aging? Well, to be honest,
let me have a guess. Not smoking.
Well, not smoking is definitely a bonus. Yes. Smoking is, interestingly, if you are a smoker, that is one of the situations where you should take lots of antioxidants, because it has been shown experimentally that if you take high amounts of vitamin C and E and other antioxidants and you are a smoker, then the benefits outweigh the drawbacks, because you're producing so many free radicals in your lungs.
What about passive smoking? Should passive smokers who live with a smoker take vitamin C as well?
Quite probably, I would say. I mean, we're in a different world now where, people don't smoke in pubs anymore and all the rest of it, which is a good thing. I mean, when I was at university, the student bar and every bar you went to was full of smoke. Much better now.
Yeah.
But to answer the question, which of the lifestyle factors, it depends on your health. Because obviously, if you have poor health to start with, you don't suddenly want to join a gym and go on an excessive exercise program, because you may cause more damage than you fix. But certain things are quite beneficial, such as short duration saunas. The saunas are very good for you, and you can choose how much time to spend in the sauna so that you don't overdo it. It's not quite so vigorous as suddenly taking up jogging, for example. But other lifestyle factors as well, the calorie restriction and the ketogenic diet, they're tricky. I went into ketogenesis just 3 weeks ago. I try to do this once a year because I just want to live as long and healthy as I can. And for 14 days, I didn't eat any carbohydrates at all. Zero. My entire diet consisted of protein and fat. And I have various monitors. I should have brought one upstairs, actually, that measure the ketone levels in your blood and the insulin levels. And my insulin levels dropped to almost zero. My ketone levels went from a normal range, which is about 0.2 millimole per liter, which I know doesn't mean anything for most people, but let's say 0.2, to a maximum of 6.5 within 14 days, which means my ketone levels were very high. And those high ketone levels would have been toxic to my senescent cells. I don't know how many died, because we don't yet have a good way of measuring that without taking biopsies from the body. But I'm hoping I killed a few off. Yes. And then when I finished, I went back to a normal diet, and I'm hoping then the stem cells started to divide. And I made myself a little bit healthier. But I should warn you, if you go on a ketogenic diet, even if it's just for a short period of time, you feel terrible at first. You run out of carbohydrates after about 2 days, because you only store about 2,500 calories in glucose. And then your body has to switch to burning fat. And it's not a quick process. And while you're switching over, you get headaches, you feel nauseous, you feel weak. But it only lasts a couple of days, and then you actually feel okay. It's like the second wind you get when you run a marathon. Once you've gone through the wall, you're fine. So I would suggest, depending on your health, something like a sauna. That's the easiest low-impact method. If you're feeling a bit stronger, perhaps something like a short-duration ketogenic diet. You can see loads of things on the internet about how to structure such a diet. Maybe calorie restriction if you're feeling very strong, because then you have to basically starve yourself for a few days, which is not easy.
That's what this next question is about, isn't it? How long should you restrict calories in order to have this effect? Well, it reminds me of, you see, I make no secret of the fact that I am enormously old. And my early life...
You do not look it, though. You do not look it.
You're so kind. Thank you. But my early life was lived under conditions of rationing.
Yes.
Which went on post World War II until 1950.
So you were on calorie restriction?
I was, yes. I think it was 1954 when rationing finally ceased. But in 1950, weren't we suddenly allowed to have a few sweets or something? But up until then, up until then, we very much had a restricted diet. And it's possible that my generation, whatever it was called, what was it? It wasn't. We've had millennials, we've got Gen
You were way before the baby boomers.
I was in the first batch. But it's possible that my generation have not, as a generality, become so obese or lived longer than the average generation because of our post-war diet.
I totally agree, and you can see this now in actually, let's see if you can guess. You probably know this. Which people on the planet do you think have the longest life expectancy?
Oh, it's the Japanese, isn't it?
It is a Japanese, but it's a very specific part of Japanese. It's one island in Japan.
All right, it's one of the northern islands where they have a fish diet exclusively.
It is. It's fish diet. It's Kyoto.
Oh, Kyoto, yes. I'm going to go for Honshu. But my Japanese...
Sorry, not Kyoto, sorry, Okinawa.
All right, okay.
Okinawa. Now, in Okinawa, they are notorious for, well, at least they were, for having a very low-calorie diet that was very high in fish. Fish contains omega-3, which is anti-inflammatory, and aging is about inflammation, so anti-inflammation is good. And they have a lot of flavonoids in their diet. So you know all those vegetables that have a lot of color in them, the purple ones?
Yeah.
That's flavonoids. And they are antioxidants, the flavonoids. They are antioxidants. And those people have got the longest life expectancy in the planet until the next 20 years. Because the young Okinawans...
They took on McDonald's.
Yes, and if you see young Okinawans, they are fat. They are very fat. They live on McDonald's and KFC, and they will not make the same life expectancy as their grandparents.
No. Well, I think that the American obesity epidemic is largely due to companies like Coca-Cola that have forced them to have sugar with every drink.
Yeah. It's terrible. We're not supposed to. I mean, I said that carbohydrates are bad for you, but at least with something like a potato or pasta, you have to digest it. But with sugar, you're basically, with Coke, you're basically injecting sugar directly into your bloodstream. And that raises your insulin levels so high. It's so bad for you. So bad.
We should sue Coke.
You know, I think in the next couple of decades, it will happen. It will be like with the cigarette companies. Because they all know. They all know how bad it is for you, but they're ignoring the evidence for a profit. And there will be a lot of lawsuits, I think, in the next 20 or 30 years, because American life expectancy and British life expectancy, by the way, has started to go down again over the last few years. And it was rising for decades. One
time I was in the States where everything seems to taste sweet to me.
It's the corn syrup.
And it was breakfast time. I was in one of the coffee shops and I was looking at the Danish, and they all looked far too sweet. They had cream on them, they had jam in them, you know, and I chose the one that I thought would be the least sweet. It called itself a cheese Danish. Boy, was I wrong.
I'm guessing it had been nowhere near real cheese.
No, cheese in America? Apart from Monterey Jack, what is there? It's they think of it in terms of cheesecake, really. You know, it's a
well, they invented the first processed cheese, which is basically sterilized cheese. And when you more pasteurized than sterilized, but when you heat it up to such a high level, you cause a change in the molecular structures within it, and you basically lose all the goodness. Because real cheese, something like Roquefort or Stilton, it's full of bacteria, which we were taught to think is bad, but it's so good for your gut. Your gut needs all these complicated bacteria.
And delicious too. Yes.
Delicious too. Okay, so let me answer that question, actually, because I didn't finish. How long should you be on a calorie-restricted diet for?
Sure.
For it to have an effect? Well, the key is you need to run out of carbohydrates, and you have about 2,500 calories of carbohydrates in your liver. So to burn that off, if you're moderately active, takes about 2 days. So then you will enter ketosis, and you want to stay in ketosis for at least a day or two. So for calorie restriction to be effective, I would say minimum of 3 days, depending on how active you are, but 4 days to be sure to get a beneficial effect if it's heavy calorie restriction. It's all about burning up those 2,500 calories.
So we've got somebody here who's confessing to, like you, taking resveratrol, Troll, and NAD booster.
Good man or girl, that person.
Yes, we don't know the name of that person at the moment. Senescent cells destroyed by macrophages during the Th1 immune response to an infection.
Yes, they can be. They can be. But it really does depend, and it's all about the numbers of these senescent cells. So there are ways you can cause the senescent cells to be killed. I mean, your immune system, when you're young, it gets rid of your senescent cells. So if you get a cut or a wound, senescent cells congregate around that wound, and they attract the immune system, and the immune system helps to repair the damaged tissue, but then it also afterwards kills off the senescent cells. The problem is, as you get older, your immune system gets older too. And your immune system loses that ability to properly kill off senescent cells, which is why you need to take drastic measures such as ketosis, calorie restriction, all of these things, because your immune system is no longer able to properly clear them away, because it didn't evolve to clear them away, because we were all dead by 30 or 40. So we don't need an immune system that can clear away senescent cells in old age. But there are tricks to do it, such as calorie restriction and all those senolytics, which are coming along. They're all in the pipeline now, and they will revolutionize the field.
Wow. I wanted to say a bit more about post-war rationing, because it's come back into my consciousness, because back in the days of the time, the government took control of all the bakeries and determined that they should not throw away parts of the grain in order to make white bread out of just the kernel of the flour, because that was wasteful and we couldn't get enough to feed the nation. So they ground up more of the grain, the husk of the grain as well, and they made a sort of dirty white bread, which they forbid from being sold until it was a day old, because they knew how delicious new bread would be and how people would gobble it up thoughtlessly. So they made everybody eat stale bread, so that we all had a fair share of reasonably full tummies. And what's reminded me is nowadays there's a loaf on the market called Best of Both. Have you met Best of Both?
I think I've come across it. Yes, I think I have come across it.
Sort of halfway between white bread and wholemeal. And I can tell you it's wartime bread.
I should actually tell you something though, while you reminded me of something. I mean, you were talking about your experience of low calories during the war. Well, not during. Just after, sorry. but you know the Great Depression. In the US, there was but there was starvation back then. Yes. And you know what? You would think during that time of starvation, life expectancy would have gone down, but it actually increased.
Yes.
It increased during the Great Depression, when people were surviving on only 60-70% of the calories they should have had. The body switched on those sirtuin genes and went into a lean burn so they could survive and reproduce. Life expectancy went up during a famine, which sort of backs up all of the things I've been saying.
Absolutely, yeah. The other thing that you said that amused me was that the Muslim religion determines that the soul enters the body after 30 days.
The Islamic religion does, yes, but Christianity, it's immediate, apparently.
I wonder how they came up with that 30 days. What sort of... Oh, thank you. Come and say hello. What sort of... I've got a child here.
Hello.
Off you go.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Very cute.
so what was I saying?
You're talking about the soul.
How did they come up with 30 days? I mean, is it a month? Was that the reasoning? Was it?
I've had this confirmed by Islamic experts, and apparently it's 30 days. It makes as much sense as anything else in these books.
Exactly. So was it the lunar cycle, maybe, that they, or the menstrual cycle? What were they basing it on?
I suppose a menstrual cycle would make sense. If you go over a month without having without menstruating, then you are pregnant, and maybe that meant there was a baby and a soul. Therefore,
right, could be. Yeah, could be.
I'm guessing at this point. I'm guessing.
Yeah. Well, we can only guess because it's all bizarre reasoning, isn't it?
But one thing I can say though is that George Bush Jr. set back stem cell research by many years. Maybe we would have some of these therapies available right now instead of them just being in labs. If it wasn't for for a president listening to a religious advisor, it's almost like an astrologer says we can't use stem cells, so we don't use stem cells.
Yeah. Well, of course, we don't have to go back through many presidents to find one who did take notice of astrologers.
Reagan, wasn't it?
Yes.
The president's brain really is missing.
Yes. So you've met Aubrey de Grey, I believe.
Yes, I have. My time with Aubrey de Grey is interesting in a couple of ways. Should I go through the story?
Well, he's not mainstream, is he?
He's not mainstream. Aubrey de Grey is what you would call a radical longevity spokesman. So we've got people like David Sinclair, who worked with resveratrol, who I talked about earlier, and a lot of other scientists are mainstream now that work in aging because they're not just saying things. They're in the lab, they're publishing in Nature and Science. Real progress is being made. But Aubrey de Grey was a little bit before that. And Aubrey de Grey is what you call a radical promoter of longevity research. And he kind of set the field back ever so slightly just because he seemed so left of center. You know, he has a beard that goes down to his waist, and he is extremely radical in his views. I mean, he believes that the first 1,000-year-old has already been born.
Wow.
He believes that basically all we need to do is add 10 years to our life expectancy every 10 years, and then that's it. It goes on forever. You never die. That is his theory. Now, I met Aubrey de Grey while I was doing my PhD. A friend of mine, it's quite interesting. So I met him sort of from two different directions. A friend of mine knew that I was very interested in aging and longevity, and I live in Cambridge, which is where Aubrey de Grey lives. So he decided to try and find Aubrey de Grey and get him to meet up with me to sign his book, which he succeeded in doing. And we met at a local pub called the Boathouse in the middle of Cambridge. And we had a really nice chat, really long chat. And Aubrey de Grey and myself, we seemed to click quite well. And I was doing my PhD, which is in cell biology and relates to aging. Well, related to aging. I finished it a little while ago. And he invited me to meet with his group. Aubrey de Grey basically is the technical director for the SENSE Institute, which is based in Cambridge in California. He's a technical director. It's a multi-million-dollar organization. And I met with a lot of his colleagues at various pubs, actually, I should say. It was always at a pub. And we would talk about aging. We would talk about longevity and all the rest of it. It was all going very well. Met him quite a few times. And then my university invited Aubrey de Grey completely separately to come and give a talk. And he gave a talk at our faculty. And my supervisor was there, my PhD supervisor. And my PhD supervisor was not a fan, let's just say. When it came to the question and answer session, my PhD supervisor said to Aubrey de Grey, who was just talking about longevity and how he would increase longevity over time. My supervisor asked him the question, do you think Methuselah was an actual historical figure? I went red. I went red. When we met for the talk afterwards, Aubrey de Grey was not a happy man. My supervisor continued to rib him. And let's say I've never met Aubrey de Grey since. It's such a shame because Aubrey de Grey is a fascinating person. He's a little bit radical, but he's fascinating. And he has a lot of contact with the real hardcore researchers in longevity that are making good progress. And it was such a shame that that avenue was cut off from me. I shouldn't blame my supervisor. I don't want to blame my supervisor, but he just had a different point of view to Aubrey de Grey, let's just say.
Yeah.
These things happen in life. Opportunities gained, opportunities lost.
Yes. It's what was it John Lennon said? Life is what happens when you're making other plans.
It really, really is. My life has been exactly like that. So we have another question. Can you say anything about these companies offering bogus stem cell therapies? Well, the word bogus says it all, really. They are, really. I agree with you. The science is still developing. In the labs, we have made so much progress. In the labs, in research, we have really pushed this field forward, but we are not ready yet to give these stem cell therapies to actual patients. And the companies that say that they will offer you stem cell therapies, they are snake oil salesmen, and they're exploiting a technology that isn't ready yet. It will be ready soon. The progress is astounding, but it is not ready just yet. And getting injections of stem cells from placentas and all the rest of it to cure Parkinson's disease and other diseases, it will work soon when we have worked out the kinks, but it's not ready yet. And I would ignore these companies. I would definitely ignore these companies.
Very wise. So here's the last question, I think. Will we live a lot longer or be kept alive a lot longer? Quantity over quality, perhaps?
Well, at the moment, the money is in the wrong place. So right now, every single year, hundreds of billions are spent to make someone with terminal pancreatic cancer live a month longer.
Yeah.
That's what we do now. We spend our money to develop drugs that just keep you ticking for another few weeks and another few months. And you're usually in misery for that time and in pain.
Yes.
And that's the wrong way to do it. Now, no money is spent, really, hardly any, in prevention. The main reason people get cancer and diabetes and heart disease and all these things right now is because they eat crap and they smoke and they don't exercise and all of the rest of it. And we should be spending the money on campaigns to make people more healthy so that you can prevent the disease rather than just trying to survive the disease a little longer when it finally arrives. The money is in the wrong place because there's no money in prevention. The money is in making drugs to keep things going a little bit longer.
Yes. The pharmaceuticalization of health is where
it is. Yes. It is. We're spending the money in the wrong area because things as simple as calorie restriction and all these NAD boosters and resveratrol and all of these things, hardly any money has been spent in these areas, but they could make you improve your health span as well as your lifespan. So to be healthier for longer rather than just to linger for an extra month in a care home, which is my idea of hell, to be honest.
And it could make money though, couldn't it? I mean, unlike the current therapies, which the pharmaceutical companies feel are sort of self-defeating, because if they cure somebody, they immediately stop buying the product.
It's true. That's true.
So what they want is for us to keep taking pills every day, even though we're not sick, perhaps. And therapies to keep us alive are that. It could be a commercial success.
Yes, the industry hasn't realized it yet because these therapies are in the early stages. But I think once people realize that we have successful senolytics that work and that people need to take every day for decades to maintain their health, then perhaps the funding will move in the right direction, and we'll stop just trying to keep people with terminal cancer alive for an extra week, and we'll start actually preventing the terminal cancer, which is a much better method, I would say.
Yeah. So, Mark, you have been utterly fantastic. And I can only grovel and apologize for my incompetence at the beginning, and I will cure it in the podcast edited version.
I look forward to seeing it, and I'll share it with all of my my followers as well.
Great. Excellent. Yes, you could use it for your students maybe, or take clips from it. I mean, if you want me to do that, I can cut out bits and send them back to you.
I'll have a think about that, actually, because part of my syllabus, I mean, I teach biomedical science. Part of my syllabus, I do focus on aging and longevity. So it could be a useful teaching aid.
Yeah. Feel free to ask me. So, thank you very much. And to the viewers, next week we have Blay Whitby, who is on artificial intelligence and ethics. Should we have concerns for our computers? Treat them as people. So that should be interesting. Tune in again next Wednesday. Mark, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.